Hello everyone, and welcome to the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. I'm of course your host TJ. It's been a while since I've talked about the book. I know that you're probably waiting to see what I'll have to say about Country Road Romance, my debut queer Appalachian rom-com novel. I want to talk a little bit about something that's alluded to in the book, but isn't explored a lot, but something that's come up a little bit in the reviews that I've got for the book, and certainly I think something that's true for anyone who was raised in West Virginia. And I'm talking, of course, about the many different regions of West Virginia. Now, I can probably hear what you're thinking. It's West Virginia. It's a small state. It only has like 8 million people. How many regions could it possibly have? But the surprising answer is that we're a strangely diverse state, not necessarily racially speaking, because we are very white, although that is changing just ever so slightly, but more in terms of like how each region defines itself and how everyone in the state, regardless of where they may be located, has a sort of claim to being the true West Virginia. Now, if you've read the book, or if you know anything about it, it takes place in two very distinct regions of the state. Part of it is in the northern panhandle, where Jared and myself are from. The latter is in Huntington, where I went to school. Now, they are both located on the Ohio River, and so in that sense, they're both kind of like in the Ohio River Valley area, but the Northern Panhandle and Huntington are very different in so many different ways. Wheeling is much more of the sort of like traditional Rust Belt kind of city. It's sort of in Pittsburgh's orbit, whereas Huntington is much more of like the tri-state of Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia, where they all kind of meet there. There's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences too. And if you've ever been to Huntington, and if you've been in Cabell County where it's located, or if you've gone to Wayne County, which part of Huntington is also in Wayne County, let alone out Wayne, you'll know that it's very distinct. And the fact that there is, in Wayne and out Wayne is itself indicative of just how different the different parts of West Virginia can be. Obviously, there's also like the coal fields that would be around Beckley. There's also sort of the southern part of the coal fields, which is more like McDowell County, where Welch is, or you have Matewan, which is where the film in Matewan was set. You also have like the sort of University Upper Highlands area up near Morgantown, Fairmont. You have the Eastern Panhandle, which are the snooty folk, because they're basically a suburb of DC, and they have all the sort of scenic, nice towns like Shepherdstown and all that kind of stuff. So it's really kind of been fun to explore that in this book somewhat, and in the next book that I'm working on, that's the traditional queer romance due out in 2026. It takes place in the coal fields around Beckley, so that's a very different region, and so I enjoy sort of getting to talk about and write about those different places because, I grew up in the Northern Panhandle, as I said. My family has been there since the 1770s. And Wheeling tends to think of itself as sort of the place where West Virginia began, because it is true, it was the capital for a while. It's where the state declared independence from Virginia. And so, there is that sense. But if you ask people in the southern part of the state, basically, I've seen people refer to the Northern Panhandle as essentially Southeast PA, which if you ask people in, like, say, Harrisburg or Philadelphia, they'd say, well, that's basically West Virginia. So it's just a very interesting kind of turf war that are going on. And the ways in which, depending on where you live in West Virginia, you basically regard yourself as the real West Virginia, and everyone else is either an imposter or a fake or a poser. But God forbid anyone from outside the state try to like criticize people from West Virginia, because then we'll band together, because nothing unites people like being made fun of. And certainly West Virginia is without doubt one of those states that is most often the butt of the joke for a whole host of reasons. So, if you haven't been to West Virginia, you may not realize just how different the parts of the state are, how they regard themselves, how they sort of jealously protect themselves as being authentically West Virginian. I mean, obviously the coal country has the, the claim of, we're the ones who give the state its economic benefit, though coal is declining, but certainly that was the case in the 19th century. If you're in Charleston, you're like, well, we're the capital, and therefore we're the real, and this is where a lot of the industry is along the Kanawha River. Or if you're in Huntington, it's like, well, we're the real West Virginia because we're along the Ohio River and we're the second biggest city in the state. If you're Morgantown, you say, well, we're where WVU is based. So you see what I'm saying? Like, everybody has their claim to why they're the real West Virginia, and it's a very amusing kind of a phenomenon to play with and to observe. As someone, born and raised in the state in the northern part, and like I said, who has deep roots in the region, I just find it amusing to me that there's all of this sense of who is and is not the real West Virginian. Well, the real West Virginian, please stand up. So that's just something that's explored and alluded to in Country Road Romance. To my reviewers who've observed that Charlie would probably not have a thick Southern West Virginia accent, remember that from Jared's point of view, everybody is from Southern West Virginia because they're a lot of the Mason-Dixon line. So, the accent is very pronounced. You'll notice that I don't have a very thick West Virginia accent, but some of my friends do, and I love the sound of it. We'll get into that in a different conversation, because I think that there's a lot of complexity to West Virginia accents and Appalachian accents in general, but that's a whole subject that Appalachia has addressed, but maybe I'll talk a little bit about it down the line. But for now, I just wanted to do this playful little post about why it's fun to talk about the different regions of West Virginia and how I hope to be able to bring those to light and give people, that don't necessarily know the state that well, a little bit of a primer on what the simple kind of cultural diversity that's, the case in my own little state of West Virginia. So anyway, that's all for today. So remember to pick up your copy of Country Road Romance. It is available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, so if that's your way, that's fine. But it's also available through Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You can order it from my website, tjwest3.com. I'm going to be hopefully launching some bookmarks and stuff, but for now, I'm just doing, signed copies, but it is only $15.99. That's including shipping, so you're actually saving money. But it's also available at your local indies. Really, wherever you buy it is fine with me. I don't care. Just don't pirate it. I would appreciate it if you actually paid it. As an indie author, I need all that money. So anyway, Country Road Romance, buy it wherever you can. I would love it if you could do that. Anyway, thanks for joining me for today's edition of the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. I'm, of course, your host, TJ, and take care, y'all.